Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to talk about something really close to my heart, what it was like growing up with faith in Jesus. It's a journey that started when I was just a kid, and it's shaped every part of who I am today. You know, when you're a child, faith is often a very simple, pure thing. For me, it started with bedtime prayers and Sunday school stories. I remember learning about David and Goliath, Noah's Ark, and Daniel in the lion's den. These weren't just stories. They were epic adventures that taught me about courage, obedience, and God's incredible power. My favorite was always the story of Jesus walking on water. It just blew my mind. It taught me that with faith, the impossible can become possible. But it wasn't just about the big, miraculous stories. It was the little things. It was the feeling of peace after saying a prayer when I was scared of the dark. It was the comfort of knowing I was loved unconditionally, not because of what I did, but because of who I was, a child of God. This idea of grace was a huge concept for a little kid to grasp, but it was planted in my heart early on. It meant that even when I messed up, which I did a lot, there was always forgiveness and a way back. As I got a bit older, into my preteen and teenage years, things got more complicated. The world started throwing a lot more at me. Peer pressure, questions about my identity, and the usual teenage angst. My simple childlike faith was challenged. It wasn't enough to just believe the stories anymore. I had to start making my faith my own. This was a time of lots of questions. I remember wrestling with things I didn't understand in the Bible. I wondered why bad things happened to good people. I questioned if God was really listening when my prayers didn't seem to be answered in the way I wanted. And you know what? That was okay. It was part of the process. Questioning and seeking answers didn't mean my faith was weak. It meant it was becoming real. It was moving from my head to my heart. During those years, my relationship with Jesus became more personal. He wasn't just a character in a book anymore. He became a friend, the one I could talk to when I felt like no one else understood. I started reading the Gospels, not just as historical accounts, but as a guide to living. I saw how Jesus treated people, the outcasts, the sick, the forgotten, and it inspired me. It showed me what love in action really looks like. He modeled compassion, humility, and strength in a way that I wanted to emulate in my own life. One of the biggest impacts of growing up with faith was the sense of purpose it gave me. In a world that often tells you to live for yourself, for the next highlight reel moment, my faith taught me that my life was part of a much bigger story. It taught me that I was created on purpose. For a purpose. That purpose wasn't about being perfect, but about loving God and loving others. It gave my life a direction and a meaning that went beyond grades, popularity, or achievements. It was a foundation, an anchor, that kept me steady when the storms of life started to roll in. Having a church community was also a huge part of it. It was like having a massive extended family. They were the people who celebrated with me, who brought meals when my family was going through a tough time, and who mentored me. They were imperfect people, for sure, but they were people trying to live out their faith together. That sense of belonging was incredibly powerful. It taught me the importance of community and bearing each other's burdens. Looking back on my journey, I feel so thankful. The little seeds of faith that were planted when I was a kid have grown into this big, strong tree. It's not just a close your eyes and believe kind of faith. It's been tested and tried. This faith has stuck with me through all the happy times and the tough ones, through wins and losses. I've learned so much about God and Jesus as I've grown up, but the most important thing hasn't changed. I'm loved, I'm forgiven, and I have a special purpose. Growing up with Jesus wasn't about following a set of restrictive rules. It was about a relationship. It was about having a constant companion, a source of unwavering strength, and a guide for navigating life. It gave me a moral compass, a heart for others, and a hope that transcends circumstances. It's the greatest gift I've ever received, and it's a journey I'm still on every single day. What about you? What was your experience growing up, with or without faith? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Let's have a conversation. Thanks so much for watching and sharing this time with me. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more chats like this. See you in the next one. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to talk about something really close to my heart, what it was like growing up with faith in Jesus. It's a journey that started when I was just a little kid, and honestly, it's shaped who I am today in more ways than I can count. I remember being a child, sitting in a little Sunday school classroom, surrounded by colorful posters of Bible stories. Noah's Ark, David and Goliath, Jonah and the Big Fish. They were more than just stories to me. They were epic adventures that taught me about courage, trust, and a God who was bigger than anything I could imagine. My favorite was always the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000 with just a few loaves and fishes. It blew my mind. It showed me that with God, the impossible becomes possible. My faith wasn't just about Sunday mornings though. It was woven into the fabric of my everyday life. I remember my mom and dad teaching me to pray before bed. They weren't long, fancy prayers. Sometimes it was just, God, thank you for my family. Please keep us safe. But those simple words taught me that I could talk to God anytime, about anything. He wasn't some distant figure in the sky. He was a friend, a protector, someone who was always listening. This constant conversation built a foundation of trust. Whenever I was scared of the dark or worried about a test at school, I knew I could just close my eyes and talk to him. Of course, it wasn't always easy. As I got a little older, maybe middle school, questions started popping up. My friends at school had different beliefs, or no beliefs at all. Sometimes they'd ask me things I didn't know how to answer. It was confusing. Was what I believed really true? Those moments of doubt were tough, but looking back, they were so important. They pushed me to not just accept what I was taught, but to actually search for answers myself. I started reading the Bible more on my own, not just the kids' version. I talked to my parents, my youth pastor, and other trusted adults. I learned that faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting God even when you don't. It's a relationship, and like any relationship, it grows through questions, conversations, and even moments of uncertainty. One of the most powerful things about growing up in faith was the sense of community. My church family was like a second family. They were the people who brought us meals when my mum was sick, who cheered me on at my soccer games, and who prayed for me when I was going through a hard time. Being surrounded by people who shared the same hope and love was incredible. It taught me the importance of being there for others, of serving and of loving your neighbor. We weren't perfect people, not by a long shot, but we were a community trying to follow Jesus together. And that made all the difference. That sense of purpose and love has stuck with me into adulthood. The lessons I learned as a kid, to trust God, to love others, to have hope even in dark times, are the principles I still live by today. Faith isn't a fairy tale I grew out of. It's the lens through which I see the world. It gives my life meaning and direction. The peace that comes from knowing you are loved unconditionally by the Creator of the universe is something I wouldn't trade for anything. It's a rock, an anchor in the storms of life. So if you are a parent wondering if it's worth it to raise your kids in faith, from my experience, I can say a wholehearted yes. And if you're a young person on this journey yourself, embrace it. Ask the hard questions. Lean on your community And keep talking to God. He's listening. It's the greatest adventure you'll ever be on. Thanks so much for listening to a piece of my story today. I'd love to hear about your own experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more conversations like this. See you next time.